Welcome to the Juice and the Orange podcast, the place where every person is just a name until you know their story. Today, we are honored to have Chisa. How are you doing, man?
Man, I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here. I just love this setup, man. This is inspiring.
Man, we are honored to have you, and we're ready to dive into your story. So tell us, for those who don't know about your greatness or who you are, who is Chisa?
Man, I mean that's a loaded question, but I think most people know me as co-founder and CEO of a company called Pedal, otherwise known as America's #1 diversity hack. So what we do, and I guess this isn't as much as who I am, but what the company is. But when you start working on projects, it can get pretty synonymous at times. But what we do at Pedal, we're a platform that helps corporations diversify their workforce with scholarships. And what that means is that when we work with Viacom CBS or Panasonic or Oracle or any of these different companies, they can't exactly put up a job description saying they want to hire a Black woman developer, right? Or like a Latino data scientist, whatever it is. But what we allow them to do is put up a scholarship on our platform for the exact same thing. Specify a junior and undergrad, a master's student, doctoral candidate, and that allows us to take that scholarship and use it as a mechanism to build pipelines of candidates that apply to the scholarship that can then, of course, be chosen to work at and with these different corporations.
Wow, that's amazing. And we're gonna dive deeper into what Pedal is doing.
Yeah.
But I would define you as a master connector. You connect
Oh.
people with opportunities and resources to fulfill their dreams. So that's just awesome. That's
Thank you
awesome.
for that. That was beautiful. Hey,
Yeah, yeah.
trying our
So yeah, man. So you're in New Jersey now, but
sir.
where are you from? Where are your roots? Tell us more about yourself.
Absolutely. So I'm from Baton Rouge, Louisiana. That's where I grew up. And so for me, I love home. I am based in New Jersey now. I love New Jersey too, no doubt about it. But I definitely feel as though I'm from one of the most unique states in America. And I think it definitely reflects within me as well. My family, my origins, I'm Nigerian. I'm very proud of that as well. I love my family. And I think that, what is it? Sometimes I refer to myself as Nigerian Louisianan. It's a beautifully unique incorporation that I think manifests itself well in everything I do.
That's awesome. So Nigerian and Louisianan, and now you are in New Jersey. And
Yes.
so we're curious, like, how did you end up in New Jersey? And how did you end up at the Church of the Oranges? Like, we want to know, how did that happen?
Yeah. So for me, I it's kind of a lot was happening in Louisiana at the time whenever I was graduating from high school. Just from economics wise, the state was unfortunately going into bankruptcy. The in-state scholarships that they were going to be allocating, they weren't sure if they're going to cut the program. And so all of that kind of came together in the perfect storm. And I started looking at schools in the Northeast. I started looking at NYU, Columbia, Boston College, Rutgers, Penn State, like all these other dudes, right? And so when I was visiting them, I really fell in love with the Rutgers experience for a number of reasons. I felt like, and I'm learning as I grow older, this is not a uniquely Southern thing, right? But I felt like the city I came from was extremely segregated. I got very tired of having to be either, here I'm in a Black circle, here I'm in a white circle, right? And what I loved about Rutgers was that it felt like everything was represented and everyone was there and it was collaborative. And then even from there, it felt like a place where, and this is a unique feeling, right? Where you can put in the work and you'll get the equal output, right? You get out what you put in. Unfortunately, that's not a universal situation. So I loved that about Rutgers, and I loved how they still had a real campus, and I still had access to like large cities like New York or Philly. So that's what brought me up here. I went to RU. After I graduated, after I graduated, our very first investor was actually in Newark. It was like this big telecommunications company, and so that's what brought me into the area here, into Essex County. And then, of course, when you're looking for a church, Essex County just is an amazing place for churches. There's real life here, and there's such opportunity to collaborate amongst different churches, and Church of the Oranges, of course, is the center for everything that's taking place there.
That's awesome. So we're grateful that you migrated to the Northeast, and now we can call you our family.
Yes,
And
likewise.
so, yeah, man. So, looking at your journey and your professional experiences and what you've experienced. So, what led you to pursue a career in communications, and also how did you end up birthing Pedal?
Yeah. I realized, and you got to really learn yourself. But I realized I loved telling stories and I loved hearing stories. And a lot of entrepreneurship is you're just a storyteller to different audiences, right? Am I talking to my clients? Am I talking to investors? Am I talking to students? I'm just telling different stories to match what the grand vision is. So, for us on our side, I guess let's see. The question was how did I? What was the question again? I already lost
Yeah.
it.
How
I
did
got
you end
the
up?
story in my head.
Yeah. How did you end up majoring in communications,
Okay.
and how did you end up birthing Pedal?
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So I started majoring in journalism because when I was like in my freshman year, I was just trying out everything. I was like, hey, hey, what's that? What's that over there? And so I started interning at the school radio station. And so while I was doing that, I learned a lot, and it came to the point where the studio was the place where I was the happiest on campus.
Mm,
There was never a place where I was happier than whenever the doors were closed, we hit record, and we're just talking about whatever, amplifying whatever, bringing in the music all slow or whatever, and I fell in love with that process. And I said, at the time, when you come from immigrant backgrounds, I think your perspective on what's possible can be very narrow. And
mm,
so I was doing that, and I was majored in the science field at the time. And it was everyone else on my show, like all of my associate producers and everything. They started getting like internships at like CBS and like the Tonight Show and all these different places. And I said, "Well, you can get money doing this. Like,
right, right, right.
like you can do this as a living." What? And so from there, of course, I switched my major over to journalism, and I just
Mm,
started diving in. And so it was through that process that I started getting into these different fields. I went and worked over at the Elvis Duran in the Morning Show, which is in New York on Z100, which was across the hall from Power 105 and like Breakfast Club and everything like that there.
yeah.
So I just soaked up as much as I could from that world and what was taking place. And then from there, went over to MSNBC and worked on a show called Morning Joe. And then from there, I went over, trying different things, which is what you got to do. Went over to Google as a marketing lead and like figuring out what was going on there. And, as I was there, it all really helped me remember my roots. Before I did any of that while I was in high school, I was working as a logistics coordinator for a college readiness company. And so
Mm,
that was like my high school experience working with people to help them get to that next level to school. And so while I was in high school, did that for a little bit and started working started working with the mayor's office there in Baton Rouge as a youth advisor. And so my kind of concentration, you could say, was really based on youth unemployment and like college readiness, because it was kind of the thing that I knew best from a
yeah.
non-academic standpoint. So you start tying these worlds together because I'm going to iHeart Radio, Elvis and all them. I love all those places I was at, but you start seeing like I'll go ahead and say 8 times out of 10, right? You have to be the only black person in the room, and I'm like,
Right.
what is going on? Uh, where is the funnel getting narrow? To where I'm coming from a city that's like 80% black. Everyone's going after these aspirational educational goals, but you start to see financially it hinders a lot of people. Or even
Hmm.
then, there's places where mentorship, just connections. We go so much about our life thinking that it is a meritocracy whenever so much more of it is a networkocracy, right? It's like, who do you know? And
Mm,
there's a huge feeling of, people hate that who it's like, they just knew people. And I said, like, you can either complain about it or you just got to go know more people.
right.
You got to choose one. And so I started realizing the disconnect between all of these students at the top of the funnel and like where it's ending up, corporate America. And it's like there was like this lack of a bridge. And so those were the seeds that really blossomed into petal. Whenever while I was doing all those different jobs and everything like that, in some of my spare time, some of my friends and I, we would just meet in the student center every Sunday from like 9 a.m. to like 9 p.m., either figuring out how to code things up or learning how
Wow.
to do a business plan, all these whatever things. And that's how we started building Petal. And so my senior year, we were, and this is how God works, honestly. We were working on this thing in the student center. Shout out to Livy Student Center. And a girl that I knew, she was working for one of the publications on campus. She was looking for a story to do. And she's like, hey, these kids keep on working here every Sunday, like doing nothing. Like they're just huddled around this couch, talking. So she picks up a story on us and then puts it out, and this other website aggregates that story, and then it gets caught up by these two kids at Rutgers Newark who were looking to create a startup that connected college startups to capital. I know it's like,
Wow.
and from there, they start kind of shopping us out. At the time, I really didn't much know what venture capital was or anything of that world. But they start shopping us around. They get to this corporation called IDT Corp, that is looking to start kind of a venture arm. And it just happens to be the right time. And so IDT reaches out to us. They're like, hey, can you come in and just pitch? We never did a pitch before. It was like during finals. So the night before, we went to our friend Dan Reggie's apartment on campus because he was like part of another startup that he had been working on. And he's like, here's how you do a pitch deck,
Wow.
Stayed up for like 5 hours until like 4 a.m., like from 11 to 4, just working on this deck. And then from there, the next day we like drive over to Newark and we get lost. We're like 40 minutes late. And we go in there and we give like the worst pitch of our lives, the worst pitch ever. And it is like 20 minutes. Nowadays, I can, pitch for me, it can be like 3 minutes. We give like the worst pitch ever. And then we're like, all right. I remember my co-founder Kayla, we were walking out. She's like, they say the first one never works on the first one. And so we were walking out, and then we got a call like the next day saying like, hey, we're interested in investing. Like we'd like to like
Wow.
see more. And so that's how we, after I graduated, we moved over here, and then a whole new story got going.
Wow. That's phenomenal. So it seems like the moment you recognize the dots and connected the dots to your personal story,
Yeah,
it was then that you were able to connect the dots of the missing gaps in society. And so,
absolutely.
yeah, what advice would you give to a young person about pursuing their purpose and, just following what they feel they're being led to do?
Yes, the thing is, we're all unique, right? Like we're all these different patterns of experiences and chemicals going on in our brains, and that unique experience, it means you have to dive into it. It means that you have to be really okay with not doing what everyone else is doing, which can be very uncomfortable,
Hmm.
very uncomfortable. But it's as you keep diving into this unique route that you discover more of who you are, and then you're able to see a different world than everyone else. You're able to see the world in a place that, hey, if this dot is connected to this dot, what do we create? What bridge do we make if we create this project to drive together these different audiences that aren't typically operating together? What does that world look like if we accomplish it? And the only way that you can dive into this niche is if you embody who you are into what you do.
Mm.
And so everyone is looking for these. And I got to say as well, right? You don't have to be novel. But even if you're doing something that's been done many times before, doing it your way. There's the
Yeah.
saying, steal like an artist. If you go and, if an artist, I can pick any rapper out right now here, just on the streets here in Newark, and I can tell them rap some Lil Wayne song. It's gonna sound like a whole new song.
Hmm.
because it's like it's not Lil Wayne. And so that's an experience of steal like an artist, just do all these different things and use your flavor, your twist on it to make it something new.
Yeah, that's powerful advice. There's really nothing new under the sun,
Not a
but if
thing.
you can find a way to repurpose and repackage your idea with a unique
Yeah.
twist, that can stand out.
Yes, change everything about you. Change
Yeah.
everything, and that's how we get a lot of the greatest things that we love using, right? Like this Mac that I'm using. I hate that I just gave them that, unpaid for.
Promotion.
Yeah, right. I'm mad I did it. I'm mad, but we're already here, But that's how you get these different items that we like to and enjoy using, and how we get shows like this.
Yeah, yeah. So how important is it for young black men, young black women, even boys and girls, even adults to consider and explore entrepreneurship? Some of us were listening and we heard you say venture capitalist, and we're like, what is that? What is a VC?
Oh my
So
goodness.
kind of walk us through the process and what opportunities are there for African American or Afro Caribbean
Yep.
or, anybody, any entrepreneur who has an idea?
Man. Well, first off, the hardest thing about an idea or entrepreneurship is starting. I think people sometimes can have this myth of what it's supposed to look like. Just who cares? Who cares what it's supposed to look like? It's not going to be glamorous, but starting is the most difficult thing. And also, ideas are dime a dozen. They say what do they say? Like the wealthiest place on earth is a graveyard because where
Yeah.
all the ideas go to die.
Mercy.
And so the ideas are dime a dozen. The execution is the differentiating piece.
Mm.
So I think when it comes to entrepreneurship, straight up, the streets need you. There needs to be more black entrepreneurship, just in general. And that doesn't mean go and quit your job and say I'm doing this now, but just start something else. Start doing something. Start a project, because you're going to learn a lot about yourself. You're going to learn a lot about your faith. You're going to learn a lot about where you are internally in life. Forget all those external factors. So, I recommend that people start, because starting is the only way that you get to any type of middle ground. And, for us, it took years for us to really even reach a proper foundation to grow on. And it was really painful and it was really hard. But I do wish that there were more people that were like us so that we could have talked to them about it, and created a more in-depth community. So my biggest thing is just start, and you're going to learn everything, because no one knows what they're doing. Honestly, like the smartest person you can think of in this game, I can promise you that they're just guessing too. Some guesses are more educated than others, but sometimes it's the least educated guesses that are going to hit the winners. No one expected Airbnb to become a thing, right? That we're going and sleeping in strangers' houses. Or Uber, that we're going and sitting in other people's cars and drive. Hey, stranger, drive me somewhere, right? So sometimes it is not the usual that makes it to the end point. And so I really recommend that people just start, learn, and then find their community of people within that field, and just go faster, and of course the biggest thing of all is just think big. Like sometimes we struggle with our reality, and I mean that like we let our reality keep us from thinking as large as possible. And so you have to be unrealistic in a lot of this. You can't be realistic in any of this. This stuff is not real. If I were to come here and tell you the money that's flying around, it doesn't even sound fair, and it's really not. But a lot of the access is fenced off by simply the knowledge and awareness of what's taking place. So if someone wants to come and talk about venture capital, I'd love to tell them about it. If you're looking for money for your idea and your project, like I'd love to chat about it. Not everything needs venture capital money to explode. Not every business, but there's a different roadmap, and this is part of like what that learning is, right? There's videos, of course, on YouTube. There's readings, but if you just don't know that they exist at all, it's hard to look for them.
Yeah. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that insight. So, from your personal experiences in entrepreneurship and life, what were some of the obstacles that you really had to work hard to overcome, and what lessons did you learn from them?
No, that's a great question. I think some of the obstacles, um, hmm, I would say learning how to manage different egos.
Mm,
Figuring out what people want. You really figuring out what they want. Someone might say they want $1 million, right? But like, why? Like, why do they want $1 million? What for? What reason? And how can I appease that reasoning in route to being able to get them $1 million, right? So figuring out that how to meld very different people to work on a similar project and make it go somewhere.
mm,
So that was really an obstacle. And when you start something, you're most likely going to lose partners along the way. The people I'm doing this with right now is not all the same people that were sitting with me in the student center working on an idea.
mm.
And so you kind of realize, like, hey, maybe I could have handled this situation differently, and maybe that person would still be here. So that was a huge obstacle. I think also thinking too highly of people that are already existingly in the field. I've grown to a place now where I truly the only person I look up to is God Himself.
Mm,
And before, I don't think that was true. I think I coveted the knowledge that other people had, and I thought that their acquisition of that knowledge meant that they were doing something better than I was, right?
wow.
And it just was not true. And so that even little thought of thinking that these people have any leverage over who I am allowed an imposter syndrome to grow within me that just
Mm,
was not fair to the plans that God had for me in general. Just
wow.
you know, and so when you really believe that you're a child of God and start acting like it, you'll be shocked at the things that you can accomplish and what will just accomplish itself in front of you.
Mm,
Purely. So yeah, I think a huge obstacle was just thinking that anyone was doing anything better than us. And I don't mean
wow.
that on an objective level. I mean like on a subject like I don't think anyone there's I will put our team up against anyone.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And you mentioned working with a team
Mhm.
and having
That's right.
confidence in who God made you and what you have to offer. There's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go
Mm.
alone. But if you want to go far, go together. So
I'll tell you
how
this.
important,
I
yeah,
mean,
how important is teamwork?
yeah.
Because sometimes if you have a dream and you share it with the wrong person,
Mhm.
it can end up hurting your vision. So how do you navigate between having a dream and knowing who to share the dream with and who to bring in to help you accomplish that dream?
Absolutely. And yeah, so I really recommend getting a team to accomplish things. This stuff is hard. If you're going to start a company or a business or whatever, there's a good chance it's going to be the hardest thing you ever do.
Mm,
The hardest thing you ever do. And if you can find a team, it makes it a bit easier. Not because it's going to be less hard, but at least you get to share the load. you know,
yeah.
um, I think that if you're going to have an idea that you want to work on, you need to already be ready to have a very thick skin
Mm,
because as a living, right now as a living, I get on calls like this and people just tell me why what we're doing will not work.
wow.
And that's what I do essentially for a living, right? And every just throwing numbers out here hypothetically, no one come and get me, but this is really the numbers that we work with now, right? Like every 20 out of these types of calls, right, we'll get like $100,000,
Hmm.
right, out of that. The 19 out of 20 are extremely discouraging. It's like you're ridiculous, you're crazy, that's stupid. Why does the world work like that? How can this happen?
Mm,
But then you hit that call where it's like, hey, what are the wiring details? Let me get to be a part of this. And
yeah.
that's that investor game. That's that venture capital game. But I say that because you have to have a thick skin with your idea. And it doesn't mean that you have to believe that this idea is perfect, but you got to believe in something of that idea, some sort of foundation of it, because everyone's going to attack it anyways.
Yeah.
They're gonna come for it. It's not gonna seem great to everybody. So on one hand, I think that keeping your idea to yourself, it doesn't do yourself justice because it can be great when you share your idea and people give a critique to it and you're able to better formulate it and you become a better storyteller with it because you're like either what I'm saying isn't getting across very well or the foundations of what I'm doing just aren't good. Let me think about that too, and let me look back at it. But it's very important that the spirit that you have for what you're doing, the passion for it, does not falter. You just need to adjust, iterate, and then find that product market fit to really make it zoom.
That's awesome advice. Thank you for sharing that. So for those who would love to tap into Pedal,
No worries.
how can they reach you? How can they access some of these scholarship funds? And just break down, how easy is the process?
Yeah. They can reach us at www.pedal.com. That's PEDUL, EDU in the middle for education. And go on there and you can apply for scholarships right then and there. You can email me at chisa@pedal.com. Every month we have new corporations and companies coming to the platform looking for different types of students. So, if you're able to register, and I do recommend registering now because not many people know this, but in the upcoming months, we are going to be shifting the platform to make it a bit more exclusive for students so we can better support our community. And that means all types of things like getting them more discounts from different companies, right? 10% off, 25% off. And then also being able to allocate more resources towards them just so they can prosper more. I think right now, and this is what you have to do sometimes with startup, doing things that aren't very scalable. And then figuring out how to scale it. But right now, we got to figure out how to better support our student community so that they're better prepared to take advantage of these opportunities at these corporations, so that they can just honestly reflect Pedal in a better light, and then also reflect themselves in a better light so we can bring more of them into the fold and just do this faster, better, and more money allocating to the people that we know deserve it most.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So we want to encourage everyone to check out the website,
Yes.
pedal.edu.
No, pedal.com.
Pedal.com,
Yeah.
and also hit up Chisa on social media and find out how you can get in on some of the greatness that is happening with Pedal. So looking forward into the future, what are some of the aspirations that you have for yourself or for Pedal in the next 5 to 10 years? What would you like to do?
Oh man, 10 years is a hard thing to say, but 5 years, what we're looking to do is we are really looking from a Pedal perspective. We're absolutely looking to be able to create this network and ecosystem. Honestly, a premier professional network that truly reflects the 21st century. I think we want to leverage opportunities into American minorities to access a global majority and expand that way as well. I think that what we also want to do is ensure that we can get to the core of these companies and the issues and problems that are taking place there, and see what we can do to fix and alter them. I want to make sure that corporate America can look a lot more like real America, and that we can see the prosperity flow more equitably. So that means going down that road, and what that looks like, I pray, looks like a more fair and just country, a real, more perfect union. And so, I think if that means that creating this network of students that become young adults that are then going to become middle-aged adults, that is going to be our power, that community, and everything we do has to be to support that community to better work amongst each other, so that they can accomplish more things together. So that's my immediate goal. That's what keeps me up at night, how to foster this community, which is why we are going to be, unfortunately, going a more exclusive route more immediately, so that we can put a blueprint together to really grow on. In regards to myself, I hope that we can get to a point that we can create systems and operations that are extremely replicable, that Kayla, my co-founder, and I don't have to be there every single day. How do we create a system that can operate itself in a flywheel that can really roll, that allows us to do other things. There's a lot of other visions that we have that we want to put into place and push. And for me, I think that means maybe touching back more innately into the roots that I fell in love with, right? That production, that doing interviews like this, right? I love. That's why I respect so much what you're doing, because it's powerful and it means a lot. And being able to articulate and tell these stories, it's not easy to do, but it's so important.
Indeed. And who knows, maybe Pedal will launch a podcast and feature some of the stories from some of the students who are benefiting from the amazing work that's being done. So I support you, brother, and I'm rooting for you.
Thank
And I
you.
think the work that you're doing is powerful because it's at the intersectionality of students,
Mm,
scholarship, and social justice. And
yeah.
you are literally engaged in all those three cylinders, and you're making a change, not just for students, but for students and generations to come. And so we affirm the work that you're doing, and we pray that God will continue to bless all your endeavors. And we're so proud of you.
Oh, thank you. And it's great to be able to have a church family and community that you can really rely on. And, some of our clients that we work with these different corporations came from Church of the Oranges, right? People that
Yeah.
were working at these places and said, hey, we do need a bit more diversity around here. And diversity, I want to also make sure that people understand, is not, no company is going after diversity in this day and age because it's philanthropic. Just doesn't make sense anymore, right?
Right.
You're going after diversity because it's a business imperative. You see the shifting
Mm.
demographics of the country. You also know you can access more markets if you're able to have a more diverse workforce. So there's money to be made in diversity, and right on the other side of that, racism is really expensive. And
Woo.
it is not an expense that anyone wants to pay. And so if you're going to be a great company 10, 15 years from now, it's going to be one that's going to reflect what this country looks like. So
Hmm.
with that being said, I'm just grateful for Church and Oranges. I'm grateful for the church community we have here in Essex, Living Faith, Montclair, etc. And what we can do together.
That is awesome. Well, Chisa, thank you so much for sharing your story and for letting us know what you're up to and how we can support it and how it can benefit us. And so we encourage you once again to check out Pedal, and you don't want to miss out on these resources, and feel free to check him out. How can people reach you on social media?
Oh yeah, hit me at Chisa Maine. So ChisaMayne. If this is coming out anytime soon, I'm in fundraising mode, so I'm not on social media as much right now. But definitely hit me. I'll see it eventually. I check in on it. But definitely reach out. And Pedal's Instagram is at We Are Pedal. WeArepedul. We Are Pedal.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chisa, again for your time and for inspiring us today.
Thank you for doing this. I appreciate you.
Yes, sir. And we thank you for watching and listening to the Juice in the Orange podcast, the place where every person is just a name until you know their story. We'll catch you next time.